All right, so we're diving into Thinking Fast and Slow today. And this book is really like a backstage pass to how our brains work.
Yeah.
Kahneman just pulls back the curtain on how we make decisions.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a wild ride.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
What's the big idea here? What are we dealing with this book?
Well, I think the central concept that really sets the stage is this idea of two systems at play.
Okay.
He calls them System 1 and System 2.
Okay.
System 1 is your fast, intuitive, automatic response system.
Mm-hmm.
System 2 is the slower, more deliberate, analytical part of your thinking.
So it's like having a dynamic duo up in our brains, but they don't always agree.
Exactly. And they definitely don't share the workload equally.
Okay.
Kahneman argues that System 1 is the real powerhouse here, driving a lot more of our choices than we realize.
Can you give me an example, something I can relate to?
Sure.
Because right now, my System 1 is just telling me I need coffee.
Well, consider this. It's much easier to think of words that start with the letter K than words with K as the third letter.
That's true.
Why is that?
Don't know.
It's because System 1 loves a quick and easy association, trying to find words with K buried in the middle.
Yeah.
That forces System 2 to wake up and do some heavy lifting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So System 2, the lazy one.
Yeah.
So how often are we really relying on System 1?
Oh, wow.
Like beyond word games?
Think about your day.
Yeah.
Choosing what to eat, reacting to a news headline, forming a first impression of someone new.
Yeah.
These are all heavily influenced by System 1.
Really?
It's constantly making snap judgments, drawing conclusions based on limited information,
Wow.
and nudging you in a certain direction before you even realize what's happening.
So like the secret author of my choices?
That's right.
Okay.
It can be incredibly useful.
Yeah.
I mean, System 1 handles a ton of tasks effortlessly, from recognizing faces to navigating familiar routes.
Yeah.
Even understanding simple language.
Sure.
It's efficient. It keeps us functioning. But that efficiency comes at a price.
Uh-oh.
And that price is bias.
Okay. Everyone loves a good bias expose.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
For sure. And Kahneman gives us plenty to work with.
Okay.
And he shares this anecdote about initially believing that adultery was more common among politicians.
Ooh, juicy.
Yeah, but biased, apparently.
Oh.
See, his initial logic seemed sound, but then he realized he was likely falling prey to the availability heuristic.
Okay.
You see, politicians' indiscretions are simply more available in our minds because they're plastered all over the media.
Right. It's what we see all the time.
Yeah.
So even someone who studies this stuff for a living can get tripped up.
That's right.
That's actually a little reassuring.
Yeah.
But if System 1 is so prone to bias, wouldn't it be better if System 2 was just in charge more often?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The problem is, System 2 is kind of lazy. Kahneman describes mental effort as actually unpleasant for us. We instinctively try to avoid it.
So we're all mental couch potatoes.
Pretty much.
At heart.
Yeah, and this is where the famous bat and ball problem comes in.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
A bat and a ball cost $1.10 total.
Okay.
The bat costs $1 more than the ball. What did the ball cost?
10 cents.
Ah.
Wait.
Seems obvious.
Yeah.
That's System 1 jumping in.
Got it.
With that quick answer.
Yeah.
But the correct answer is 5 cents.
What?
Over 50% of Harvard students get this wrong.
No way.
They don't engage System 2 to double-check that intuitive response.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So embarrassing.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Who wants to do math when there's a perfectly good, easy answer staring you in the face?
Exactly. Exactly.
Kahneman argues, we're drawn to what he calls cognitive ease.
Okay.
Easy feels good. And we associate that feeling with truth. But things can feel easy for reasons unrelated to truth.
Oh.
Like a statement printed in a familiar font.
Okay.
Or a phrase that rhymes. Suddenly it seems more believable.
So we're all suckers for a catchy jingle.
It's more than that.
Okay.
This susceptibility to cognitive ease creates illusions of truth. It's like the Muller-Lyer illusion.
Okay.
Where two lines are the same length, but the arrows at their ends make one seem longer.
I've seen that one, yeah.
We know they're the same, but we can't help but see them differently.
Right.
That's cognitive ease tricking our perception.
So this isn't just about falling for marketing tricks. This is how we form beliefs.
That's right.
Judgments about the world.
Exactly.
All of it.
Precisely.
Wow.
And this brings us to a concept that might seem a bit spooky at first. priming.
Ooh, priming. Okay.
The idea that subtle cues can influence our thoughts and actions without us realizing it.
All right, give me an example. This is where I start getting a little skeptical.
There's a classic study where students were primed with words related to old age.
Okay.
Guess what happened?
I don't know.
They actually walked slower afterward.
What?
It's incredible how much our unconscious can be influenced by factors we're completely unaware of.
So you're saying just reading certain words could make me act differently?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
But the study does highlight the power of the unconscious. And this idea of priming pops up again and again in the book.
Really?
Kahneman uses it to explain everything from how we judge the truthfulness of statements to how we perceive risks.
Okay, risks. Now we're talking about something that really matters.
Right.
How does priming play into that?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Let's say the media is constantly bombarding you with stories about a particular danger, like shark attacks or plane crashes.
Yeah, that'll make you think twice.
Exactly.
About swimming or flying.
But the actual probability of those events might be incredibly low. This is what Kahneman calls the availability cascade.
Okay.
The media hype amplifies our fear of rare events, leading to disproportionate responses.
That makes sense.
He uses the examples of the love canal and a Laura scare, where public panic may have actually outweighed the real danger.
So we're basically at the mercy of media manipulation.
Not necessarily.
Oh, yeah.
But it's crucial to be aware of how our risk perception can be skewed by the information we're exposed to.
Okay.
And that awareness starts with understanding the power of System 1.
Okay, so quick recap here.
Yeah.
Fast-thinking system, quick and efficient,
Yes.
but also biased, easily swayed.
That's right.
Slow-thinking system needs a good kick in the pants.
That's a great way to put it.
Sometimes.
And this leads us to another fascinating bias that trips people up.
Oh.
The conjunction fallacy.
That sounds familiar.
Okay.
Is that the one with the bank teller?
You got it.
Okay.
Remember the Linda problem?
Yeah.
You're given a description of Linda, who is outspoken, deeply concerned with social justice.
Okay.
And you have to choose which is more probable, that Linda is a bank teller or that Linda is a feminist bank teller.
Okay. I'm going to try to avoid the trap here.
Yeah.
It's got to be more likely that she's just a bank teller.
Exactly.
Right. Because the feminist bank teller is a subset of a larger group.
You got it.
Okay.
Most people go for the feminist bank teller option.
Really?
Falling for the conjunction fallacy.
Wow.
It feels more representative of Linda.
Yeah.
But statistically, it's less likely.
That one really makes you question how much we base judgments on how well something fits a story rather than actual probability.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this tendency to favor narratives over statistics can have big consequences in our personal lives and in society as a whole.
So we're not just talking about word games. This has real-world implications.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
And the more we understand these biases, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions.
Okay.
Avoid common pitfalls, and maybe even nudge ourselves towards better choices.
So we've established that our brains can be pretty tricky.
Yeah.
We're quick to jump to conclusions, susceptible to all sorts of biases, and often swayed by emotion rather than logic.
That's right.
Is there hope for us?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because Kahneman isn't just pointing out the problems. He's also offering solutions.
Okay.
And one of those solutions is pretty counterintuitive.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
He argues that sometimes the best way to improve our decision-making isn't to try to become more rational, but to rely more on algorithms.
Algorithms, like the ones that decide what ads I see online?
Not exactly.
Okay.
He's talking about simple, rule-based systems that can often outperform even expert judgment. One of his key examples is the APGAR score. That quick assessment they do right after a baby is born.
Right. I remember that. What makes that an algorithm, though?
It's based on a simple checklist.
Okay.
Yet it revolutionized infant care by standardizing the assessment of newborns' health.
Wow.
It's incredibly effective at identifying babies who need immediate medical attention.
So you're saying a checklist is more reliable?
In some cases, yes.
Than a doctor's years of experience?
Yeah, and that's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
It challenges this idea of expert intuition that we often put so much faith in.
This is making me think about all the areas of my life where I rely on my gut feeling or someone else's supposed expertise.
Right.
What if an algorithm could do a better job?
That's a question worth pondering.
It is.
And it speaks to a larger point Kahneman makes.
Okay.
Sometimes letting go of our illusion of control and trusting a well-designed system can lead to better outcomes.
That's pretty mind-bending stuff.
It is.
But I have to admit, I'm kind of hooked. I want to hear more about how this plays out in our daily lives, in our relationship, even in our pursuit of happiness.
Well, you're in luck, because that's where we're headed next.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's dive back into Thinking Fast and Slow with Kahneman's insights on the two selves and the elusive nature of happiness.
Sounds good.
So we've established our brains are like a two-person comedy act, with system one kind of firing off those quick jokes and system two just trying to keep things somewhat sensible.
Right.
What happens when we start talking about bigger issues like happiness?
Right.
Where do the two selves fit into all of that?
That's where Kahneman really gets into the human experience.
Okay.
He argues that understanding happiness means understanding the difference between our experiencing self and remembering self, especially when it comes to making choices.
We touched on this a bit before.
Right.
So to recap, the experiencing self is all about living in the moment, feeling the pleasure or the pain right now. The remembering self is the one looking back.
Yes.
Forming the story of our lives based on our memories.
Exactly. And Kahneman argues that the remembering self has way more power than we realize. When you're making decisions, you're essentially making a bet on how you'll remember that experience later.
So I might choose a vacation based on how Instagrammable it is, even if it means sacrificing some actual enjoyment.
That's a perfect example.
While I'm there.
Our remembering selves are drawn to highlights, to stories we can tell ourselves and others.
Yeah.
And sometimes those stories don't match the full reality of what we live through.
That's a little unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like my memories are being curated before I even make them.
It highlights the importance of being present and mindful of what you're actually experiencing.
Okay.
Not just how it'll look in the highlight reel later.
So that's vacation planning.
Right.
What about bigger decisions, like financial choices? Kahneman introduces this concept of prospect theory.
Yes.
That seems like a pretty big deal.
It really is.
Okay.
Prospect theory challenges the traditional way economists thought about decision-making.
Okay.
It's based on this idea that we feel losses more strongly than we feel gains.
Okay.
And that we tend to overestimate small probabilities.
So losing $100 feels way worse than gaining $100 feels good.
Exactly. It's called loss aversion.
Okay.
And this explains why we make irrational choices. Like holding on to a losing stock or refusing to sell a house for less than we paid for it, even if it makes financial sense.
So fear is a powerful motivator.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We're often more driven by avoiding loss than pursuing gain. And it's not just money. It applies to relationships, career choices, even our sense of identity.
Okay.
We cling to what we have, even when change might be beneficial.
So if we're naturally wired to avoid loss, doesn't that mean we'll miss out on opportunities?
It's a balancing act.
Okay.
Kahneman acknowledges this tension. He suggests thinking of your decisions as part of a larger portfolio of risks.
Like a diversified investment portfolio.
Precisely.
Okay.
If you treat each choice as a calculated risk, the occasional loss stings less.
Okay.
It's about taking a long-term view and not letting fear paralyze you.
This is making me think about all the times I've played it safe. Stayed in my comfort zone. Maybe missed out on something great. Maybe I need to be a little bolder. Take a few more risks.
It's not about being reckless.
Okay.
But about recognizing that some risk is necessary for growth.
Okay.
And that takes us back to our two selves. Because which self are we trying to please when we make these choices?
Back to happiness.
Yeah.
We talked about how the remembering self might lead us astray.
Right.
Picking the vacation that looks better in photos than it felt to experience.
Yeah.
But how does this apply to our overall well-being?
Kahneman dives into the distinction between how we feel in the moment and how we remember those moments later on and how they both contribute to happiness.
He talks about that colonoscopy study, right?
Yes.
Where people rated a longer, less painful procedure as worse than a shorter one simply because the ending was more unpleasant.
Exactly. Right. That's the peak end rule in action.
Okay.
We judge an experience based on its most intense point and how it ends, not the overall duration.
Wow.
It's like our remembering selves are writing a biased review.
Okay.
Focusing on the highlights in the finale.
That makes me wonder if I've been chasing the wrong kind of happiness.
Yeah.
Like focusing on achievements, those peak moments, instead of just enjoying the journey, the everyday stuff.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
Our culture glorifies those highlights.
It does.
But true happiness is often in the simpler, everyday moments.
Oh, yeah.
We tend to overlook, like spending time with loved ones, connecting with nature.
Yeah.
Even just enjoying a good meal. It's about savoring the present, not just planning for the memories.
So how do we do that?
Right.
How do we balance those two selves?
Yeah.
Create a life that's both fulfilling in the moment and leads to positive memories.
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no easy answer.
Okay.
But Kahneman offers some great insights.
Okay.
He suggests focusing on activities that bring you joy right now.
Okay.
Not just the ones you think will make good stories later.
So ditch the fancy party I'll hate to stay home with a good book.
Exactly.
If that's what truly makes me happy.
It's about being honest with yourself about what you value, what brings you genuine joy,
Okay.
and making choices that align with those values,
Yeah.
not the ones you think you should be making.
This is honestly making me rethink my whole approach to life.
Yeah.
I'm realizing how much I've been living for the memories for that future version of myself instead of the one experiencing things right now.
It's a common trap.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in achieving, striving,
Yeah.
that we forget to actually live. Kahneman's work is a powerful reminder to slow down,
Yeah.
be present, and savor the simple pleasures.
This is all so fascinating, but also a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's like my whole understanding of myself and the world has been turned upside down.
That's the power of Kahneman's work.
Yeah.
He challenges our assumptions, makes us question our beliefs,
Yeah.
and ultimately empowers us to make more conscious choices.
Okay, we've covered a lot here.
We have.
From the two systems of thinking to loss aversion, the remembering self.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we need to cover?
There is one more crucial aspect of Kahneman's work we haven't touched on yet.
Okay.
The distinction between our two selves.
Wait, didn't we already talk about
Yes.
the experiencing self and the remembering self?
Yes, but there's another layer to this duality
Okay.
that's particularly relevant to our understanding of well-being.
Okay. Yeah.
Kahneman distinguishes between what he calls hedonic well-being and life satisfaction.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. So there's hedonic well-being,
Right?
which sounds like indulging in all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's life satisfaction. Are those two always in sync?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Hedonic well-being is about feeling good in the moment, experiencing pleasure, avoiding pain.
Okay.
It's very immediate.
Okay.
Life satisfaction, on the other hand,
Yeah.
is more about how we evaluate our lives as a whole.
Okay.
Do we feel a sense of meaning, purpose?
Yeah.
Are we achieving our goals?
Okay.
It's much more cognitive, you could say.
So I could be having a great day, feeling all those good vibes, but still be dissatisfied with my life overall.
Exactly. And the opposite is true, too.
Really?
We might be going through a tough time, but still feel a deep sense of purpose, like we're on the right track. Think about those people who seem to have it all.
Okay.
Wealth, success, fame,
Yeah.
but are deeply unhappy.
Right. That's a pretty clear example of how those two things can be out of whack.
Yeah.
But how do we get them back in balance? How do we make sure we're not just chasing that short-term pleasure at the expense of long-term fulfillment?
It's a tricky question.
It is.
Kahneman suggests we need to be more mindful of how we're spending our time. Are we engaging in activities that bring us joy in the moment?
Okay.
Or are we just focused on those things that we think will make us look good? Or that we think should make us happy?
So it's about recognizing the difference between what actually brings us joy and what we've been conditioned to think should bring us joy.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this is where understanding our biases can be really helpful.
Okay.
Because often those biases are pushing us toward choices that don't actually serve our well-being.
So let's say I'm aware of these biases,
Right.
working on being more present, savoring the little things.
Yeah.
What about those big decisions?
Okay.
The kind that really shape my future? How do I apply Kahneman's ideas to those?
Well, one thing Kahneman highlights is that even experts fall prey to these cognitive traps.
Okay.
He tells this great story about being hired by a financial firm to teach their employees about decision-making.
These are the people who manage money for a living.
Right.
You'd think they'd have this figured out.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
but they were utterly convinced of their own expertise. It's like they couldn't accept the idea that their intuition, their gut feelings might be leading them astray.
That's a good reminder that we're all susceptible to biases, no matter how smart or experienced we are.
That's right. And even Kahneman himself admits he's not immune. He talks about falling victim to the planning fallacy.
So even the guy who wrote the book on cognitive biases still makes these mistakes.
It's a common human flaw.
Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
Sure.
But how do we avoid falling into these traps ourselves?
Right.
Is there a way to outsmart our own biases?
Kahneman offers a few strategies.
Okay.
One is to take an outside view.
An outside view? What's that?
Of our own plans and predictions.
Okay.
It means trying to look at the situation objectively, as if you were an impartial observer. Consider base rates, statistical probabilities, the experiences of others who have attempted similar tasks.
So instead of just going with my gut feeling about how long a project will take,
exactly,
I should look at data on how long similar projects typically take.
By taking that outside view, you can temper your optimism and create more realistic expectations.
That's actually really helpful. I tend to be overly optimistic, so that's definitely something I can work on.
Yeah.
What other strategies does he suggest?
He also recommends something called a premortem.
A premortem. Sounds a bit morbid.
The name is a bit dramatic.
Okay.
But the idea is simple.
Okay.
Imagine your project has failed.
Okay.
And then work backwards, identifying all the potential reasons for that failure.
So it's like a post-mortem, but before the project even begins.
Exactly.
Okay.
By anticipating those potential pitfalls,
you
can take steps to mitigate them.
Okay.
And increase your chances of success.
That's such a practical approach.
It is.
Seems like something anyone can do.
Yeah.
Regardless of their field or experience level.
Absolutely. It's all about being aware of our own thinking patterns and learning how to navigate those mental shortcuts that often lead us astray.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Kahneman's thinking, fast and slow.
Yeah.
From the two systems of thinking,
yes.
the loss aversion, the remembering self, and now these practical strategies for better decision making.
That's right.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding
Good.
of how my mind works and maybe even how to make it work a little better.
That's the beauty of Kahneman's work.
It is.
It's not just theoretical, it's deeply practical. By understanding our own biases and limitations, we can become more conscious, intentional, and ultimately more fulfilled individuals.
So to our listener,
yes,
we encourage you to embrace the insights of thinking fast and slow.
Absolutely.
Pay attention to those two systems at work in your own mind.
Yes.
Notice when you're making decisions based on fear or on how you think you should feel, rather than what truly brings you joy.
It's important.
And remember, even with all our biases and our quirks, our minds are capable of incredible things.
Absolutely. And the more we understand those minds, the better equipped we are to navigate the complexities of life, make choices that align with our values, and ultimately create a life that's both meaningful and fulfilling.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.